What is up, everybody? Today we're with the one and only Jen Pontarelli. Jen, we met about 5 years ago, I believe it's been, right? And ever since we met, we just hit it off so well. And something that I always admire about you has been your attention to detail when it comes to coaching others achieve success and greatness.
Thank you.
What exactly drew you and helped you to get to that place?
Well, whenever I teach, I want the participants in my class to feel successful. And that starts with teaching them the basics and never assuming that people know how to do what we're asking them to do. Starting with, from the ground up, the basics of how to do an exercise. So where their feet should be, all of the joints along the way up, knees, hips, chest, all of those things. Educating them in how to move.
And that is so important because when we think about exercise, people are coming to the clubs, they're coming to work with the trainers, with group fitness instructors, with the coaches, and there's already so many barriers. There's so many barriers between them and exercise, and one of the barriers is not feeling competent to do the exercise, especially seeing people that maybe have been doing it for years, and now they come to a place, I don't know what to do, I don't look that way. So that is incredibly important to focus on the basics. Right?
And it removes the barrier of fear.
Right.
Sometimes when people are new in our classes, they are afraid. They're afraid of looking a certain way. They're afraid of feeling a certain way. They're afraid of getting hurt. So if we can break down exercises and keep things simple in a way that helps them feel successful, we can keep them coming back to class.
That is so important. I'm so happy that you mentioned that because that is one of the biggest shifts that I personally have experienced in coaching. It's in the beginning, I tried to make exercise harder than it needed to be.
It's hard enough on its own.
It's hard enough in its own. That's 100% right. I think that's something that we agree on all the time. And the moment that I realized that my role as a coach in helping others is not necessarily making the work more intense or harder, but actually make our participants, make our clients forget about the fact that they're exercising. That's what I personally found the most success. And I saw the shift in people just lighting up, just having a good time with exercise.
Yeah, if you give the basics and then really look out at what's happening and not just the movement quality that we see, but also what's happening on people's faces as well. That goes a long way.
Yeah, and now that we're talking about barriers, something that you do so well that I learned from you has been in the realm of step, especially Les Mills body step.
My favorite.
And yes, like that's one person. This is a person. If you think you love body step, I would challenge that because I've never seen somebody love body step so much as you do.
True.
As you do. But talking about the barriers, we have a barrier right in front of them. So what are some of the things that you have used, success stories that you found that you can share with us to help our participants to feel that way, to already feel intimidated by it?
Well, I start by sharing the example that when I first started, I had a very hard time feeling successful in a step class. And I actually honestly walked out of the room. I made it through 15 minutes and I left because I felt unsuccessful. But I loved that 15 minutes at the same time. So it was this great divide. I wanted to go back, but I was nervous to go back. And I always keep that feeling in mind when I am starting with my class introduction and reinforcing to people that you don't have to use a step. You can start this class on the floor and it'll still be a great workout. And you can do the height that works for you. It doesn't have to be this many risers. Don't worry about what anybody else in the room is doing. And I keep my coaching very clear and uncluttered in the first half of tracks and then look out and see, are people successful? I purposely will leave out things to increase complexity if the majority of the people in the room are not ready to move to something more complex, whether that be arm lines or a fun anything. We want to look out at the floor and see what the majority of our people need Because the people who want the extra or know the extra, they're going to go and do the extra anyway. But the people who don't need us and they need our help. So really strong class introduction, helping people feel welcome, and then look at them throughout class. Even if they're struggling, because they might still be struggling, and just give them a smile or a shout out. Like, look, we're 20 minutes in already. You're doing great. If you're here, you're moving.
And that is incredibly important to take a look to see what's happening in the room. And sometimes we can get caught up into
what's next.
Yes, what's next, or analysis paralysis, right? Because if we're honest, we can see many things happening in the room.
Yes.
Right? How do you quantify what to pay attention to?
I look out for safety concerns first and foremost.
Mm-hmm.
So if I have one participant who is at risk of falling and another participant who maybe just doesn't have great range of motion, my coaching is always going to go to the person at risk first.
Right.
Because we can handle intensity in a future track or in a future setting. But if someone falls and gets hurt, that person's not coming back to class. And then other people around them may feel like, oh, this is dangerous. I could get hurt.
And I'm so happy that you mentioned that in another setting, because a lot of times we can put a lot of pressure in trying to help our participants from a great place, but we can also get frustrated if we don't see the shift happen right there. So the shift might not necessarily happen that one time, not for the next 2 or 3 times, but with consistency.
It takes time.
Right.
Yeah, and if you think about how people learn, when we're learning something new, think back to when you learned how to drive and your brain was like, okay, are my hands in the right place? Is my foot in the right place? What's the speed limit? Is somebody coming? All that information overload. You couldn't have learned that all at once. You have to gradually integrate those skills. It's the same with our participants. Maybe they learn one thing this class, and that's one thing that they didn't know, and that's one step closer to becoming a proficient experience in your class is those building blocks. Because if we try to overload people with information, they're not going to pick up any of it.
Right.
Most important has to come out first and foremost, and be okay with small shifts.
Yeah, and also from our perspective too, like, there's a lot of pressure that we put on ourselves if we don't see the shift happening right now. So that alone can remove that anxiety that sometimes we feel like, am I not good at this? Why are people not moving this way? Am I not efficient at what I'm doing right now? Right? I think that's something that we all go through.
Yes. I remember overcoaching to the max because I wanted to tell everyone everything I knew about every exercise every time I taught it. And that actually detracts from the experience because now you have participants who can't hear music. They can't hear what's happening, the song. A while back, Les Mills did research on what do participants hear, and it showed that participants hear about 50% of what we say, or less than that. So if we're constantly flooding them with information, it's getting lost. Whereas if we stop, in our mind and look and what is the most important thing right now, scan the 4 quadrants for safety, and then build to okay, if everyone is safe, how could I improve some execution? How could I make things the right intensity for everyone in the room?
Yep.
And how could I teach them more about this? But take that time, create that space, and make a strategic decision about what's the most important thing to say next.
Absolutely. Now, if there's one thing that you can share with all of us in this realm of coaching clients, participants in the room as a group, what would be the one thing, biggest takeaway that you can share with us?
I think it's the acknowledgement of the person and the follow-up. So before class, setting people up with a strong intro and introducing. I teach the same classes, the same time slots and things. I know if someone is new in the room. So greeting at the beginning. I know this isn't one thing, but trust me, it all comes together.
I'm going to rub it up very nice for you.
So the greeting at the beginning and making them feel welcome, the smiling and looking and acknowledging during class, and then the follow-up at the end, help people feel valued and successful. That is more important than how many things they learned in that day. If they had a fun, positive experience, they're more likely to walk away feeling like, wow, that was a good time. Not just like, wow, I learned 15 different things about exercise today.
Right. So all those things that you cover basically can be narrowed down to being present.
Yeah.
Being present with our participants. That's probably the most important thing too. And it took me years to figure that out too. Because I'm very similar to you. I think that's why we got along so well, because you're like, oh my God, you feeling this? Yeah, me too. Like I see this thing in classes. What do you do? And then we nerd out all the time about coaching.
All the time.
But all the time. Like hour-long conversations just about like coaching, right? But yes, for me, one of the biggest realizations was to be present. And what that means is, yes, if we're teaching something that is pre-choreographed, it's great, we have a structure, but having the awareness of looking at the people to see what's happening, because if something is not landing, it doesn't matter, like the more we try, and if they're not willing to do it, then we just have to be aware of where the people are.
Yes.
And meet them there, right? So being present with the participants. So
that's the secret.
So let this script go. Just be like Elsa. Just let it go.
Let it go. Cover your basics, right?
Yeah.
Cover your basics, but then be present in the room and let other things go. You can teach them that next week.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or the week after.
Absolutely. So let's recap all the great nuggets that we had today. So the first one was to make the complexity and take it away, because that is going to allow people to remove barriers to exercise. They already really don't want to exercise. Like we are weird. We love exercise, but most people don't. So taking the complexity out and then being present and being okay knowing that people might not get it the first couple of times.
Mm-hmm. I didn't.
Yeah.
I walked out of my first couple of classes.
Me too. I had to step out
to go breathe.
When I took BODYPUMP for the first time, and it was in the bicep track. I was like, oh my God, what's happening here? I had to step out because I couldn't finish it. Yeah. So yeah, hopefully this was helpful to all of you. Yeah. Thank you so much for your time. Where can people find you in New Jersey to take a wonderful experience with you?
Oh my gosh, I'm in South Jersey, Camden County. At the Edge.
At the Edge Fitness.
At the Edge Fitness Clubs in Voorhees, a little bit of travel into Deptford and Township. But if you ever want to come to a class, you can find me on Facebook or Instagram. It's just my name.
Right here. It's Jem Pontarelli.
Yep, it's super simple.
How do you spell it?
How do you spell it?
Pontarelli.
I'm putting you on the spot.
Pontarelli. Pontarelli.
So close. So close. We'll spell it for you.
You're also asking the immigrant right here. So once again, thank you for your time. Hopefully this was useful to you. Jen, we'll see you next time.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Bye.